So here again, there's this dance between safety and uh, and risk. And meeting challenges involves risk and safety and some vulnerability. You can get harmed. So we want to have people safe. The ability to be safe uh, potentially gives people the power to reach further out beyond their comfort zone. It doesn't necessarily ensure that people can be so safe that they just become lazy. So we want to have a dynamic dance. This is the yin yang, we want to have challenge embedded in the safety and safety embedded in the challenge. But as this pattern notes, most people don't step far out of their comfort zone. It's much more comfortable to be in your comfort zone, to not have challenges. And we go through all sorts of contortions, denial and, suppression in order to try and stay in our comfort zone. And none of these are helpful. To deny the problems in a relationship, to deny climate change, to deny, racial difficulties. These things do not allow these reactions do not allow us to actually engage with them. And if we just get the challenge thrown in our face, for most people, it's like if you throw the challenge of climate change, or you throw the challenge of what your partner did to you, or you throw the challenge of racism in the face of, who was then become an opponent, they will tend to do the fight or flight. They'll back away, or they're going to close down, or they're going to lash back. None of which actually help address the problem. So for us to be able to apply our intelligence and wisdom to the realms, the challenges that we face, we need people able to step up at all the different levels, personal, community, relational, societal, to meet these challenges. So the knowledge that creating safety, creating spaces where people can actually take risks and not be harmed, and that they know that that's there, that they can move into that space with other people, allows the best of both worlds. We don't want to create safety that has no challenges in it, but if we want people to deal with challenges, we want to create a kind of safety that empowers them to move up, to step forward, and truly and effectively, as this says, engage with the challenges they face. And so much of this manifests in conversation. You have people, when people speak their minds, speak their hearts, and people challenge that, fight against them, express disgust or intense disagreement. The person who's met with that energy, will tend to push back, or just say, fuck it, and sit down and not speak anymore. So having facilitators who create a little bit of order, create some space, and this can be simply helping people speak in turn, which most facilitators do. It's like, who's going to speak next? You speak. You have something to say over there. Just hold it for a minute while this first person gets a chance to say their thing. So, and maybe speakers going on a little too long. Other people have things to say. They're managing and monitoring the conversation. And more potent forms of facilitation involve active listening, where you're the person who's speaking, the facilitator is making the space especially safe for them. They're responding in ways that tell them they're being heard and understood, that somebody is compassionate for their perspective. They may or may not agree, but it's really okay to say all the things you're saying, to feel all the things you're feeling. That's kind of the aim of active listening. Nonviolent communication uses empathy. They have an empathy practice, to try. So is this what you're feeling? Is this what you're needing? And similarly, the dynamic facilitation has a similar, very empathic, active, active listening to the people who are speaking, very consciously making the space safe for them, and then moving on to the next person who, even if they have totally different perspective, you're making the space especially safe for them. And knowing that normally marginalized people, minorities, women, whatever, out in the society, all these forces act to push them out of the conversation, to make them silent, to give them a lot of shit for whatever they may say or do. They tend to be either much quieter, withdrawn, not speaking their minds, or very forceful and in your face, because that's what they found they need to do in order to be heard. So there's special recognition of that and attention given to that, and maybe even preference for, it's like, let's now hear from the women, whatever. There's that kind of energy that a facilitator can bring, or a process can bring. And sometimes it's very formalized into the overall process. Fishbowl, where you have a bunch of people of a particular perspective, or let's say all the women in the group in the center talking about their experience, and all the men or whoever the other parties are on the outside listening to them talk. And then you flip over and you have the men in the middle, or whoever the other main group is in the middle, talking amongst themselves. All the women or that other party sits around and listens, and you go back and forth. There's kind of a breathing, you're hearing, you're taking turns hearing each other's world, but in that there's this interaction going on among the women, among the men, providing different insights that you can watch. But there's a safety. You don't have to, the women and the men can say what they're thinking to each other, or to the women can talk to the women, and the men can talk to the men much easier than the men can talk to the women, and women can talk to the men. So this creates a space by the structure of the process that allows a lot of interaction and insight to happen in this sort of caucus kind of arrangement. Arnie Mindel's Deep Democracy and Process World Work is another thing. It actively evokes what are the voices that want to be heard, the voices that are being suppressed in this charged field. He does a lot of work with racism, works with mixed groups, mixed races, and values every perspective to come out and be heard. And it's seen as not coming from those individuals, but coming, for example, from the field of racism. Arnie used to be a quantum physicist, field theorist. He's brought that to psychology, inspired by Jung's collective consciousness stuff, collective unconscious. So there's a sense of we are speaking out of a field that we're all immersed in, and that creates a safety as well as the facilitation. That sense that I'm not just speaking for me, don't attack me, or if you do attack me, notice that your attacking energy is not from you, it's from the field. The field has these voices that want to be spoken, and we are carrying those voices and becoming channels for them. And we're not going to, another thing that makes it safe is, you can enter into this discussion and we're not going to force you or pressure you to come to any agreement, to conform to something that's coming out of this. If there's something that we all are going to say together at the end of this, it's going to be something that comes from us all, that is a legitimate expression of what we all deeply feel, rather than a forced thing that you're being boxed into. And another totally different kind of safety is if you're going to show up in our collective councils, you may need support to do that, and recognition that you need, childcare, you need some financial support or something in order to show up. That creates a space where you can show up and be present in ways that you couldn't. If nobody's going to take care of you in that way, you can't come and take the risks in your life that would be involved in showing up. And speaking of infant care, there's a whole nother, it's like when you are trying to raise a child, a big part of your challenge is to have the child be safe and feel safe enough to reach out and take risks as they grow up. Most parents feel this very poignantly, the need to keep the child safe physically in ways that the child may not appreciate, but it's still needed. And how do you keep your child safe while they're able to go out and endanger themselves in various ways in order to learn how the world works? That dance is part of what child rearing is all about. And it goes with their expressions of emotion and talking and the ways they use their body, etc. You're always in that dance. So child rearing is, in a funny way, very resonant with the kinds of needs we're dealing with in order to have a wise democracy, where people feel safe enough to reach out and engage, but they actually do reach out and engage and meet the challenges that we're all trying to deal with together.